and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. We are in mortal danger. I kid you not. Well, not you, but we here in the studio. I don't know why we decided to do this. It may be our last episode. Oh, there it is. You see, we have a big giant rifle in the middle of the studio.
No, Santa.
Santa. Oh,
yeah.
That's
if
true.
you had to deliver in Chicago and New York and other quote-unquote gun-free zones, he presumably has to go to Australia.
You would think so. You know, what does he deliver there? You know, my favorite meme, I don't know if it's a meme, but more of a cartoon really, is it's Santa delivering in Wyoming. And he's dumping out his bag, and it's just like this truckload of guns falling. Well, I mean, that's exactly right. But anyway, Ken, you do have a nice rifle that you just put together. Why don't you tell us all about it?
It's brown.
Yes, you're right. It is brown.
It does not float.
No. It survived.
So probably on my boat trip next week.
I was just going to ask about
some
that.
horrible thing will happen to it. That is a 6 arc. Think of it as a short case 243, and it is designed to kill rodents and coyotes.
It's a beautiful, beautiful weapon, as they all are. You know, Ken, if anybody ever tells you that you have enough guns, you should just stop talking to them. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. Well, anyway, my friends, on today's program, well, I guess we should give you an update from yesterday's show. I have not heard from Commissioner Nick Siddle. Well, I mean, that's not really an update. I never really expected to hear from him. It would probably be to his detriment to say anything. But no, haven't heard any response from the Sheridan County commissioners, nor any other commissioners for that matter, but certainly not Nick. And I'm not talking of old Saint Nick. We begin this morning in Rock Springs. I know. It's usually a rough day if you have to start out any day in Rock Springs. No offense to the people that live there, but come on, admit it. It's Rock Springs. I've been there a time or two, and I'd just rather avoid it. Well, there's allegedly a teacher who's been, the alleged teacher has been misbehaving. He's not allegedly a teacher. Maybe he is. It depends on how you look at it. But anyway, and the reason why I chose this episode is we place a great deal of trust in those people who are supposed to educate our kids. Let's be honest, our kids spend way more time at school than they do with any of us.
I had tremendous trust in my wife.
Yes, as you should.
Children's educator.
Yeah, and she did a fantastic job knowing your children. I still question whether or not they're actually yours, but, never mind. So anyway, where I was headed with that is we entrust a great deal of faith in our teachers because our kids go to school and they spend, around 8 hours every single day. And in some cases, if you're in activities, football or basketball or speech and debate, you spend significantly more time with school staff. And the thinking is that those people are going to act in a manner that's respectful, both to the student and to you as the parent, because whether or not you realize it, You are the boss of the school. Oh, okay, I know. We elect a school board, and I guess technically they're the supervisor of the superintendent, and the superintendent supervises the principals, and the principals supervise the teaching staff. But really, when it all boils down to it, it's you that are the boss in that whole situation.
If you doubt it, just look at the state constitution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, perfect example. Not really example. You're perfectly right there. Well, there's this teacher in Rock Springs, and there's a piece in the Cowboy, and it's entitled "Rock Springs Parents Blast School District Over Vulgar Wristband." And you know what? While I'm talking about this, I suppose we should probably show you what I'm talking about here. Where is it? Did I miss it already? Well, anyway, we'll find it and we'll put it up on the screen for. Oh, here it is. Just didn't see. So there is the wristband in question. You can see that it says follow policy FAFO, and the part that you can't see is there's another plus sign and it says GFY. And I'm just going to assume that everybody knows what that acronym means. Those acronyms, but I don't think I absolutely know that is not an acceptable thing to be wearing in a school. And, you know, the theory being that you want your students to act like the teacher or emulate their teachers. And when you have people that are wearing stuff like this, I don't think we really want our students emulating that type of behavior, certainly not the profanity. And here's how contradictory this is. In many schools, you can't even wear any T-shirt that has a political saying on it. You know, if you had a T-shirt that said Reagan Bush 84, you couldn't wear that in school. You can't wear any Trump paraphernalia in most schools that I know of.
Try wearing an Oath Keepers shirt.
Yeah, well, only you would. Well, not only
Or-
you, but you would know about that, Ken.
Or if you took the photograph from that photograph and put that on your T-shirt.
Yeah, you can't have
Yeah,
that.
you
No,
can't
no,
have
that's
that.
violent. You know, that actually happened to me when I was working for AT&T. I had to cover a couple of classes. I was a corporate trainer for AT&T for a while, and I had to cover a class in San Francisco, and the room they had me in was just frigid cold. I don't know who was manning the thermostat, but they should have been shot. Well, one day I decided to wear a sweatshirt from Sturgis. It was really, really warm. And on the sweatshirt, it had 2 crossed pistols. And I was told that I couldn't wear the sweatshirt anymore because it was violent. Okay, sweatshirts cannot be violent, nor can any other thing, you know, that's printed. But in any case, that actually happened to me. But down in Rock Springs, there's this teacher, alleged, and he's wearing this wristband that says FAFOGFY. Here's what the Cowboy says, quote, Sweetwater County School District Number 1 leadership is under fire after parents and community members on social media accused a Rock Springs High School administrator, so it's an administrator, not a teacher. I was apparently wrong about that, of wearing an orange wristband that includes acronyms that stand for vulgar phrases. And again, I think we all know what that stands for. School board member Josh Sorensen acknowledged the existence of the wristband at last week's school board meeting, but did not accuse anyone specifically of wearing it. Quote, I think a lot of times we have an elephant in the room that we don't talk about, he said, and I'm going to try today. Word came out about a wristband that was made and was discouraging to me. It was very offensive. It was mean. Actually, the wrong way to lead. We all know that they exist, and that's about it. A photo shared on the Rock Springs High School Facebook page on August 15th, 2024, shows a school official wearing an orange wristband, but no wording on the wristband is visible. A screenshot on a Facebook group entitled Sweetwater Number 1 District Accountability page includes a blown-up image of the official's bracelet and a caption claiming the teacher, the school leader, quote, walks around wearing a bracelet that says follow policy plus FAFO plus GFY. So the question is, who are these people we're hiring to be school administrators? I mean, theoretically, you would want people that had pretty good sense of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And given the times that we live in, any little thing that you do could offend somebody. I'm not saying that, you know, some people don't take that word offense to an extreme. They absolutely do. But given the political climate that we're in, you would think if you're in a position of leadership in a school that you would know that that's not appropriate. And I think I would argue, not even knowing who the school official is, that they probably do know that that's inappropriate and just assumed that they would get away with it. But I think that this ought to lead us to a broader discussion of more a question, really. Do we take things like this, so this bracelet, and T-shirts and other clothing and, things that, T-shirts with guns on them, do you think that we take that to an extreme? I would argue that yes, in some cases we do. I see no problem with a student wearing a T-shirt that says Reagan Bush 84. I see no problem with a student wearing a Trump T-shirt or a Kamala Harris T-shirt or any of that. I don't think that words physically hurt people. However, when it is a person in leadership, you want to be the person that students emulate. And if you're displaying behavior like that, I don't think that's appropriate.
I wore a hat yesterday that I never wear.
Which one was it? I don't even remember.
It had to do with Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
Encouraging Brandon.
Yes.
And I don't wear that around the Capitol. I don't wear that in any place where I'm officially being a representative. I don't think that's appropriate. Here on the show,
it kind of fits in.
Maybe another matter.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was going to ask you that question, Ken, that as a elected official, you know that pretty much you're going to be recorded all the time, whether it's on video or audio or...
Yeah, and we're careful. I put on a sport coat one day and went onto the House floor and failed to really check what pins were on it, and one of them was just the Republican Party
Oopsie.
of Wyoming. Yeah, that's not appropriate there according to the House rules. So I removed it, quietly stuck it in my desk drawer.
That's not the only time you've done some Republican-ish things on the floor.
Well, let's not go there.
I think your point, though, is that there are certain things that are appropriate on the House floor, and there are other things that aren't. And you should know the difference. And if you're an elected official, or if you're if you're a superintendent in the school or your principal or whatever, you know the difference. This individual knew the difference. Just obviously they thought that they could get away with it. The cow pie, quoting again, well, it says Cowboy State Daily, but we know it's really the cow pie, reached out to the school official being accused of wearing the bracelet, but no response came back by publication. Cowboy State Daily is not naming the administrator because specific claims have not been substantiated by the school district and could not be independently verified. Yeah, if it was a Republican, a member of the Freedom Caucus, or anybody else that was doing something like that. Ken, your phone is leaking. Anyway, so if it were a Republican, a conservative, anybody else that the cow pie disagreed with, they would be front page and center. Certainly, if it were Agent 29, his face would be blasted all over every newspaper. But that's just the hypocrisy of the cow pie.
Yeah, my phone does that all the time. So I turn the ringer off, and then I get like a stack of messages.
It's incredible how often your phone rings. All right, so back to the piece. School board chairman Cole Wright told the cow pie in an email that, quote, the district does promote and expect professional atmospheres and communication between all staff, student, and parent relationships. Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Superintendent Joseph Libby said in an email to the cow pie that the district was, quote, aware of an anonymous complaint and related public commentary regarding an orange bracelet that has been referenced at a recent... Man, talk about trying to wordsmith your way out of something. But anyway, it's been referenced. But since the matter is directly related to personnel, he offered no specifics. And, of course, everything is an executive session after that. But, again, I think that this should lead us to a broader discussion of, what is acceptable behavior and what is not. And if you are a private citizen, I mean, we all know that when you go to grandma's house for dinner, or at least we ought to know, that you dress a little bit better than you would with your skateboarding buddies. That you put on a nice pair of jeans and a nice shirt. That perhaps, not everywhere, but perhaps you take your cap off when you're at the table. I mean,
yeah. Unless you're going to Walmart, you try to look presentable.
Oh Lord, man, Walmart late at night, that is an adventure. Those are people who weren't taught what is acceptable and what is not. But again, how is it that we're not enforcing, forcing policies that these folks know what they ought to be doing? And secondly, what does this tell students? So again, if you have a school administrator, they're in a position of leadership in the school, higher than a principal, presumably higher than a teacher. And so the students are supposed to look to that person with respect. Well, if you're wearing this, I think it's a clear indication that, one, you don't respect the people who pay you. That's you and me and everybody else that pays taxes. You don't respect the students because this is what you're showing them, and you certainly don't respect yourself.
Back when I was a buck sergeant on Fort Carson, I had a bumper sticker that says, "And you thought Jimmy Carter sucked."
Yeah, terrible, terrible. How dare you offend people?
Yeah. Sergeant Major came to me and told me that had to be gone. And he was right. I mean, that's not appropriate, even for just a buck private. But for a sergeant, for somebody who's supposed to be leading troops, we're not supposed to disparage the commander-in-chief, which I think that sticker might have done.
Which it may have done. But at least you knew that it was inappropriate when you put the bumper sticker on, didn't you?
I didn't worry much about it.
Fair enough. Well, I think the point is here that this school administrator, he absolutely knew that bracelet was inappropriate. And there's no way that you can get out of that, right? If you're wearing something that says FAFO and GFY, you know what that means.
But to your point about the broader topic, little things like that will tell you a lot about somebody. When
Absolutely.
I go into somebody's house, which is often, I love to go look at their book collections because
Yeah.
that will tell me a lot about a person. I look at their bumper stickers on their vehicles when I'm going door to door to go inside or to go to the door and talk to them and try to get clues. And little things like that will tell you quite a bit. And there are times where that is just probably best left on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And, maybe we often talk about the political climate being, very divisive. All right. It's politically polarized and, how we all go to extremes. And I think that's probably true for both sides. But really, it boils down to a measure of respect. There are a lot of things that people say online that I don't think that they would dare say it to somebody to their face. Probably because they might get punched in the nose. And perhaps rightfully so. But, our level of respect has really gone downhill a great deal. Now, you'll notice on this program, perfect example, I try really hard not to swear. And I don't, when I have a guest on, if I have any question about it, we always have the conversation. Okay, listen, no profanity on the show. It's because I have respect for you. And I just assume that you don't want to hear me using that sort of language or anybody else. And I wouldn't do that intentionally anyway. Similarly, when you're in the Capitol building, for example, unless you're certain individuals, you probably don't drop the F-bomb everywhere you go because it's not appropriate. When you're at a public meeting, city council, county commissioner, you don't do that. You try to be on your best behavior because there's an expected measure of respect that you should follow. And I think in some cases we're kind of getting away from that.
Yeah, we kind of have rules in the studio, and if you don't want to follow the rules, well, FAFO.
But there again, it's our program. We can do whatever the heck we want with it. Well, anyway, there you have it. Dumb school administrators in Rock Springs who probably should go find another occupation. And, if you're going to make this mistake once, you're probably going to make it again. And, again, you're supposed to have a level of respect that obviously you don't. Now, one thing I saw this morning I'm kind of disheartened about, though I do understand it, is Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, is leaving the agency. This is from Breitbart, and I quote, Federal Bureau of Investigation's Deputy Director Dan Bongino confirmed that he would be leaving the agency in January as reports swirled of his upcoming departure. In a post on X, Bongino thanked President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel for giving him, quote, the opportunity to serve with purpose. I'll be leaving my position with the FBI in January. I want to thank all of you. Most importantly, I want to thank my fellow Americans for the privilege to serve you. God bless America and all those who defend her. Now, President Trump later said that he thinks that Dan just wants to go back to his show, which I completely understand. Being the deputy director can't be a very pleasant position to be in. Certainly with every liberal in the country taking aim at you and what you do and your entire life being scrutinized. And I mean, if you've never done a radio show or a podcast or anything like that, it's hard to understand like how much you would miss that, but I would miss it a lot.
There's that. There's also, we all, especially the older we get, kind of get used to our lives and the way that things are.
So that's the way you are. The way you are.
Well, that's part of it. And when you do something as traumatic as I have done, frankly, and find yourself essentially 24/7, yeah, we do sleep, but if you're awake, this is part of who you are.
Yeah.
Phone starts ringing sometimes at 5:30 in the morning. We can talk about that sometime too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about it. We won't mention any names, but we'll talk about it.
We don't need to. And it never really stops. And if you really care about what you're doing, you want to do the best job that you can, and it will burn you out. It will wear you out. It will exhaust you. I'm not saying I don't want to start rumors. I'm not saying I'm at that point. But you can only do this so long and do it full bore. I was speaking to a longtime senator the other day, and he said to me, he says, I'm amazed at you newer guys. He said, you're really in there doing the job. He said, me, I'm not doing it anymore. I've been here too long.
Oh, well, good. Did you promptly show him the door?
He's not going to listen to me.
No. But I mean, your point is well taken. There are a lot of nights that Christine and I will be watching a television program and my phone will go off and I'll reach over and hit pause on whatever it is that we're watching. And I have to talk for a while and then, all right, we're done, hit play. And then 10 minutes later, the same thing happens and it continues all night long. Often I leave my phone in another room when I go to bed at night so that I can't hear it and so that it doesn't disturb my beautiful wife. But you're right, Ken. You do this sort of thing and, your phone rings constantly and you just have to learn to set it aside. That, not everything has to be handled right now. But I think the larger point is that there is a measure of respect. Like I try not to call people before, unless I know for a fact that I can, but I try really hard not to call people outside of business hours. That means I don't call them at 7 o'clock in the morning. Ken, sorry, you're not on that list. Sometimes you get called at 7. No, I don't mind if people send me a text message, because there again, my phone's in the other room.
Yeah,
but
7's one thing, but 5 o'clock, 4:30, I get called
4:30?
4:30 in the morning.
Oh my God!
And I wouldn't want to out them, but
No.
yeah, and texts come all night.
Yeah, you're not going to get away from that. But there is always the silence button on your phone, and I guarantee you that whatever it is can wait until the morning. Not everything has to be handled 100% this minute. Often I'll go up to the cabin, for a weekend or whatever, and I used to think, well, I need to go up at least once a day and check my messages in case anything happened. I don't do that anymore. And when I'm up there, I'll just tell everybody that's important, hey, I'm going to the mountain. You can't reach me. If you have to talk to me, you know where I'm at. You can come find me. And if you don't know where I'm at, then it probably means I don't want to talk to you. But what I found is that there is very rarely anything that can't wait a day or two. And I think we all ought to get back to that. Let's just have some respect. And
if it is an emergency, though, just make sure you're tuned in to Wyoming Public Radio.
Yeah, you and the other 3 people can listen to it. So here's one, and we often talk about this on the show. You know what? Actually, this is going to be a longer conversation. So let's go ahead and take our first break, and when we come back, we'll tackle this one. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Thursday. Welcome back to the show, my friends. I'm David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. And the times that I'm not, I tell you that I'm not. And I think that's really important. It's one of the reasons why you listen to this program is because I have one of the things that a lot of people don't, and it's called credibility. From the cow pie.
Wait.
I knew that would set you off.
If you have credibility, why do you use the word incredible?
See, and that's you misinterpreting a word. Go get a dictionary. Do I have one? Heck no, I need to get another copy of Webster's 1828 in here, just so we have reference to it. But anyway, from the cow pie, a letter to the editor. Mental health is not a lack of faith. All right. Now, this one, we've talked about this before on the program, but I think that given the time of the year that we're in, around the holidays, there are people that suffer from, some seasonal depression, those sorts of things, and they aren't just manifestations of somebody's mind. I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that suffer from that.
Yeah, but I know what the problem is. Do you remember?
Oh, well, I know what the problem is. Let me give me your version.
There are good days. So by definition, there must be bad days.
True.
If everybody goes around all year round and says, have a nice day, and you do so, by the end of the year, you've used up your quota.
Oh, Lord.
and you got nothing left. So if you really want to help somebody out during the year, just say, have a crappy day.
Oh, God.
Get it over with now. Your holidays
Yesterday,
will be way
my
better.
friends, I told, we were leaving, and I said, all right, Ken, have a good day. And he responds, don't tell me what to do. Don't take advice from Agent 29 on this one. All right, from the cow pie, quote, in small towns across America, people are silently suffering. Okay, all right. Behind the beauty of our wide skies and open land, I can't even read this with a straight face. As an Episcopal priest, I believe the way, I just skipped a paragraph, the way we treat those struggling with mental illness reveals what kind of society we are, what kind of God we believe in. Scripture teaches that every human being is made imago Dei, which means in the image of God. That means every person, no matter their state of mind, carries infinite worth. I would say intrinsic worth. That's probably more accurate. When we neglect mental health, when we fail to make care accessible and affordable, we're neglecting that sacred image of one another. And you just know where this is headed when you hear that. That it's you and I, the Wyoming taxpayer, that is responsible for this. But I think we should probably just let the author say this. Mental health is not separate from spiritual health. Jesus' invitation, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest, speaks directly to those crushed by anxiety, trauma, and depression. Healing the mind and the spirit is part of God's ongoing work of redemption. That work belongs not only to the church, but to the entire community, and that includes our local and state governments. Who says so? I'm pretty sure that even if you read the Bible, if you read the Constitution, you're not going to find a spot in there that says that government is responsible for your mental health. Now, I might go so far as to say that government might be responsible for the state of your mental health, but there again, that relies on you. The truth is, my friends, that government has no place in healthcare. Though we have created a situation where it's going to be very difficult to get government out of the way. We need to put some WD-40 on that. But I don't think that government...
That was my back.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Hear those noises often, do we?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think my point here is that we all know that government ought not be... I shouldn't say we all know the government ought not be involved in healthcare, because there's obviously one person here that disagrees with that. But the question is, why shouldn't government be involved? First, not in the Constitution. Second, that's the role of the church. It's the role of private entities. It's not my job or Ken's job or anybody else.
Whoever wrote this, I don't know who wrote it. What's
let's see here. Reverend Cami Dewey.
Cami? Okay,
Yep.
an Episcopal priest.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Okay. Began the article by talking about in the image of God. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Does that mean that God looks like us? How are men different from animals? And this gets a little bit philosophical, but I think it's important. Mankind has a triune nature. We are body, soul, and we are spirit.
Yes.
And I believe that's what it means when it says in the image of God. And if we do that, and if we do what the left prefers and leave God totally out of government, which they are doing everything they possibly can to do, then there is no way then government can spiritually look after someone. Now, this person's argument, I believe, stems something to the effect of it's not the job of the church.
Uh-huh.
But if the church is the only one that can go into the spiritual realm, then the church is the only one qualified. That's basically how I would start the argument.
Well, and it's the next paragraph, I think, is pretty telling. And let me just read it to you. Wyoming small towns face unique challenges. Isolation, economic hardship, stigma make it hard for people to reach out for help. When you live in a community where everyone knows everyone, admitting you're struggling can feel risky, but silence doesn't save lives. Support does.
Hang on just a sec.
Uh-huh.
That's another fallacy. I get really tired of arguments that start with a false premise.
Yes.
There are very, very many people who live in the middle of millions, in the midst of mass populations that are completely lonely.
Yes.
And it's just a fallacy. So don't start there. I reject your premise, Cammie.
Yes, we do.
Keep trying.
All right. So here's the last line, and I think this one is perhaps, I think this one pretty much sums up the entire piece. But she says, but silence doesn't save lives. Support does. This is where public leadership matters. Churches can't do it alone. Now, while I will agree halfway there that it is the job of your friends and neighbors, your family, to take care of you, but it is not the job of the government. And why wouldn't we want the government handling? Because the government doesn't use a scalpel. Government is incapable of doing that. Government uses a hammer. And when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I can tell you for a fact, my friends, that everything is not a nail. Have you ever tried to hammer in a hex screw? It doesn't really work that well. But when you're crafting government policy, our Constitution specifically says that we can't create special laws. What a special law is a law that's passed for a specific group of people. For example, there was a bill I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it said we're going to create the ability for lawyers to work in a small town. And when we did the math, there was only like a dozen people that might apply to. We can't create laws for a small group of people, nor should we. And that is part of the reason why government always fails at the area that this person is talking about. The government can't look out for your mental health. And if you want to know why we have such a problem with people's mental health, is we rely too much on government and not enough on God. And that is the proper place for charity. And, your community, your friends and neighbors, they do bear some of the burden. But we've moved past a time when, we actually knew our neighbors, when we would, actually have barbecues with our neighbors, and we actually went and checked on them from time to time. And I'm as much to blame as anybody. I don't know that many people in our neighborhood, and I've lived there going on 3 years, 2.5 anyway. But I can't walk down the street and tell you who lives where. Now, when I was growing up, absolutely, we knew everybody in the neighborhood, and up and down the street. And when when you knew that one of your neighbors was having a hard time, or maybe they lost their job, or there was an accident in the family or something, well, you walked next door with a casserole and said, "Hey, we made you dinner." Or you walked across the street and said, "Hey, I've got chickens. Here's a dozen eggs. I know you're having a hard time." But I don't think that we do that very often anymore.
It doesn't, and it's probably a little bit weird. We buy eggs from one of our neighbors, stop in and check on another one. Another one brings over every time Diane bakes something or they bake something, they bring some of it over to us. And it's kind of annoying, actually. But I have another neighbor that basically goes around telling everybody that people like me are going to destroy this county. So sometimes a little anonymity might be nice.
It might be. Let me read this next part to you. And now she says, this is where public leadership matters. Churches can't do it alone. They can offer compassion and spiritual care, but they can't provide licensed therapy, psychiatric treatment, or long-term recovery programs. Mental health is infrastructure, as vital to the community's health as roads, schools. Okay, no. Healthcare is not infrastructure. Healthcare is it's true. Everybody is going to have to deal with a doctor from time to time. But it is not the job of the government, nor should it be. The government cannot provide you spiritual care, and you certainly don't want it to. As probably what you're going to get would be something far worse than you're already dealing with. The government shouldn't be providing you guidance. And if you are looking to the government, well, then you've got a much more serious problem than you know. It is not the role of government. Nowhere is it listed in the Constitution. You won't find any of the founding fathers that said, what we really need is a government-run hospital. You won't find that. Government is not healthcare, nor is it psychiatry, nor is it counseling. It's none of those things.
Now they tell us you can't have a school without a psychiatrist in there.
I know. All you got to do is a district judge to make those kinds of determinations. How about this one? The prophet Micah said it best. What the Lord requires for us is to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. Next paragraph. Justice looks like a system where a person in Rollins or Newcastle has the same chance at mental wellness as someone in Denver. Mercy looks like a community that meets suffering with care, not stigma. And so the false premise then is that government can provide that for everybody and that everybody is the same. This is the exact opposite of what I was just talking about.
That whole scripture verse actually completely blows up her whole argument. The last part of that is to walk with your God.
Yes, not
walk
with government.
Humbly with your God. That's what we're getting at.
Yes, it doesn't say walk humbly with government, no matter how much this.
Well, I suppose if government is your God, therein lies the issue.
Well, that might be the problem. Now, in the next paragraph, there are concrete steps our government can take. Expanding funding for community-based counseling centers, particularly in rural counties. Investing in telehealth and broadband infrastructure so people can access therapy without driving 3 hours. Partnering with faith organizations, schools, first responders to train. Is there anything that you don't want government to do? because that seems to be a pretty inclusive list if you ask me. But the reason why we don't want government involved in those things is government is incapable of handling those things. And if you want government run healthcare, you get a one size fits all situation. You end up with what happens in Canada, where the government is spending too much money on healthcare, and so they set up this little program of assisted suicide. I'm sorry, you're costing too much, and so we just have to kill you.
Yeah, we run out of money and the hammer doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
We'll use the shovel.
yeah. Oh boy, when the hammer doesn't work, you use the shovel. Oh man, from sage advice, Ken. So anyway, I mean oh Lord, I missed this part the first time I read this. Ken, get ready. Get ready. You may need this. All right, here we go. Supporting mental health isn't about replacing faith. It's about giving them the tools, access, and dignity they need to become whole again. The word salvation comes from the Latin salus, meaning health or wholeness. To be saved is to be healed, mind, body, and spirit, and that's what's at stake. So are we arguing that government is going to give you salvation?
Once again, mind, body, and spirit. She's defeating her own argument because to her, words don't mean anything.
Words don't mean anything to this person. The truth is that government cannot do all of these things. There are very few things that government can do, and we don't really do those things very well. If you want things screwed up, get the government involved.
When government can at least attempt, you got a problem.
Yes.
And that's where we're at.
Yep, that's exactly where that's why, Ken, that's why you can't unwind the Department of Health budget. That's why everything is such a big, giant Gordian knot, and you can't figure out which string to pull, let me rephrase that. You do know which string to pull, but it affects other things.
I especially like the reference to a Gordian knot living here in Wyoming.
Yeah. That's true. That's what we have now. Okay, this one ought to blow your mind. And I don't even know, last week, well, not just last week, last couple of weeks, we've been talking about polls and how polls are biased, and it depends a great deal on how you ask questions, the answer that you get. If you craft a poll to give you a specific answer, chances are you're going to get that answer. Josh Durrell. But this one is from Breitbart. And I kid you not, this is the headline. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tops J.D. Vance in a 2028 presidential poll. Do you believe that?
So what they do? Have a poll that was a picture of each and say which one is cuter?
No, I still might pick J.D. Vance. Ms. Buggy Eyes. All right, here we go. In a hypothetical 2028 presidential race, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez beats Vice President J.D. Vance nationally by 2 points. I dare say I don't think they polled anybody in Wyoming on this one. Quote, the New York Democratic Congresswoman known as AOC edges the likely Republican nominee 51% to 49%. The Argument Vericite survey released on Tuesday reports or is reported by Newsweek. There's your first clue that maybe this poll might be a little bit suspect. Quote, however, the result was well within the poll's 2.7 percentage point margin of error, making the two candidates statistically tied. The poll asked voters who they would vote for in the election if it was between the two. The poll shows that Vance leads with white voters 57% to 43%. AOC, however, wins 79% of black voters and 64% of Hispanics. Men chose Vance at 54%, while women chose AOC at 56%. Here's the okay, so here's where they tell you, part of the thing, the questions that you should always ask whenever a poll is out. How many people did you poll? Who did you ask? What were the demographic breakdowns? There are some people in the legislature that if you suggest that maybe those things are important, they'll tell you that it's not. I wouldn't know anybody like that. But anyway, this poll says they asked 1,521 registered voters between December 5th and December 11th, and they also found 8% of Trump voters would move to AOC. But can AOC win the 2028 Democratic primary? Now, if you read this whole thing, it doesn't tell you how many people were Republican that they talked to and how many people were Democrat that they talk to. And that, I think, is the most telling part of this poll, is that if that is the thing that's going to throw the poll into question, well, you don't mention that. And they don't in this piece, which my guess would be they probably talked to a lot more Democrats than they did Republicans.
Well, it's put on by Newsweek.
Yeah, well, at least Newsweek reported it anyway. Yeah.
But a lot of things that never seem to come to light. There are an awful lot of conservatives that won't answer any polls.
Absolutely. I don't really
So
answer.
there's a built-in bias. I won't.
Yeah, if I don't know the number, I usually don't answer the phone. And I think if it's important enough for you to call me, it's important enough for you to leave me a message. And if I don't know the number, leave me a message, and I might call you back. But Ken, I think you bring up a pretty good point that a lot of Republicans, they just don't listen to polls. The lovely Christine got one the other night, and it was I think some other people got the same poll around here, but she went through it. And the funny part is, one question is, does anybody in your household work for the media or own a media company? And she answers yes. And then the very next thing is, I'm sorry, you don't qualify for our poll. And of course, anytime we get those things, I ask people to take screenshots so we can see what the questions are. Because how you ask a question, how you phrase it, the people that you talk to, all of those things are relevant.
I had a constituent call me the other day complaining about that poll because they had called her about 5 times, and some of them at like 10:30 at night.
Christine got it like really late.
Yeah.
9:30, 10 o'clock.
Sorry, I can't do anything about you. But that probably turns a lot of people off from answering.
And I mean, again, how often has polling been wrong the last 10 years? You remember, man, this is a long time ago, but do you remember when exit polls were a big thing? That news organizations, they would go poll people after they went and voted. And I can't remember what the election was, but there was one that was just horribly off. I mean, bad, like 60%. That they figured out that was the error. And then after that, news organizations, we didn't use exit polls anymore. But now, and think about this too. So you talk to 1,521 people, and you're claiming that that's across the country. Well, there's a heck of a lot more people in the country than 1,521 people. A recent poll that we've been talking about, the Josh Durrell poll, he only talked to 500 people. That's not, and we live in a state of 586,000. So 500 out of over 500,000, that's not a very good number. And I don't know that it is all that representative of the public opinion. Nancy Case often quotes a poll about Medicaid expansion, and the demographics are pretty much the same on that one, around 500 people. And it's, of course, he won't tell you how many Republicans he talked to and how many Democrats, but the poll is very much in favor of Medicaid expansion. Well, if you talk to a lot of Republicans, they'll run in terror from that idea. So, polling, okay, so it's interesting, but I think at the end of the day, it's just that. It's the opinion of some people that you talk to, and it means no more than that. Now, here's an interesting topic. We've been talking about healthcare subsidies, or Obamacare subsidies, a lot lately, and that's what held up the government shutdown for, 43 days, something like that. But this is a piece from Breitbart, and it's entitled, "Centrist Republicans Join Democrats to Sign Discharge Petition Forcing Obamacare Subsidy Extension Vote." So a discharge petition kind of goes around House leadership and brings the vote up on the floor. Quote, "A discharge petition," and we have a similar thing in Wyoming. It's not called a discharge petition, but what is it, Ken? Is it 2/3 is required to bring a bill to the floor? Okay, yeah, he's nodding his head. So if there's a bill that the speaker doesn't want out on the floor and he just puts it in his drawer, well, if you can round up 2/3 of the vote, you can bring that thing out on the floor and vote on it.
That's just during a budget year for something outside the budget.
Well, I thought there was a vote like in any other time if there was something sitting in a drawer.
Well, if the speaker or somebody has chosen to shelve something, then it takes a supermajority to be able to override that.
Yeah,
So
and that's what I'm
maybe
talking
what
about.
you're getting at.
Yeah. So anyway, similar thing in Wyoming, but let me just give you the ins and outs of this thing. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, Mike Lawler, Rob Bresnahan, and Ryan McKenzie gave Democrats the 4 signatures they needed to meet the majority threshold of 218 members to force the bill out of committee and bypass leadership. The website of the Clerk of House of Representatives shows. On Tuesday, Speaker Mike Johnson said Republican leadership could not come to an agreement with their more centrist caucus members after a closed-door meeting. There's about a dozen members in the conference that are in these swing states who are fighting hard to make sure they reduce costs for all of their constituents. Now, the truth is, and we talked about this a little bit on the program yesterday, that the correct solution to this Obamacare problem, healthcare problem, is to get government out of the way. Absolutely, these subsidies should be let to expire. Now, is it going to hurt? Yeah, it's going to increase premiums for a lot of people, but that's in the short run because it will force insurance companies to lower their prices. I mean, if it's like any other thing, if you own a business and your prices are too high, you're not going to get that many people that come to you. And so you're going to be forced to lower your prices so that you get more business. And, there's a couple of things that well, let me back up here. Let's see here. Meanwhile, Republicans are working to pass their own health care plan, with the House advancing the rule for the, quote, Lower Healthcare Premiums for All Americans Act. Now, again, I have a little bit of heartburn with Republicans and Obamacare. How many times have we heard the Republicans say, we're going to repeal it and we're going to replace it? And the next Congress comes around and they say the same thing. And then the next year comes around and they say the same thing, and they never do it. So this may be another one of those. But this passed its initial vote by 213 to 209. A final vote is expected on 5:30 p.m. And I printed this. Okay, so it was printed yesterday. So I don't know if that vote happened or not. The Congressional Budget Office on Tuesday found that the House Republican health care reform package unveiled last week would lower premiums by 11% and would save $35.6 billion through 2035. However, the bill would decrease the number of people with health insurance by an average of 100,000 over 2027 to 2035. All right, so there's a number of things in the Republicans' plan, and some of them actually we've been trying to deal with in the Wyoming legislature. And first on the list is to increase transparency for pharmacy benefit managers. Now, this is a bill that came up, I believe, in the last session. And Ken, if you could give us an idea of what that means, I'd really appreciate it. Because I was a little unclear when the bill came up in the legislature.
I was a little unclear, too. It's a very complicated mission, actually. Essentially what we have is trying not to go in deep into the weeds. Essentially what you have is an ingrained, entrenched middleman that you can't get rid of, and it causes all kinds of issues, to the point that people who were on, I forget the term for it, but the insurance that military veterans get, they can only buy their drugs through certain, I don't know the word. I'm sorry.
Businesses, for lack of a better term.
There's certain places they have to go, but they're not available at their local drugstore. And so they end up having to order everything through the mail. They can't do it here. It's basically the problem is that the government is involved in so many of these things, and regulations. You can do this, you can't do that, picking winners and losers. It's not a free market. And that's the core of the issue. Yeah,
and that's exactly the point, that it is not a free market, and then you don't have open competition. Some of the other items here, appropriate funding for cost-sharing reduction payments that would lower premiums, expand access to the association health plans that would allow self-employed workers and other membership-based organizations such as Costco, Amazon, Sam's Club to create their own health insurance pools, ensure small and mid-sized employers can protect themselves from catastrophic claims, codified Trump era. All right, so it goes on and on. But one of the reasons why, or one of the attacks, maybe it's not a reason, that the Democrats are using to push this is that, the whole reason that we have Obamacare really is Trump. Ken, go ahead and play the video that it's Jamie Raskin, and he says that it's the whole reason for it is Trump. Let me get you the right title here. But yeah, anyways, Jamie Raskin saying the whole reason why we have this, well, it's Donald Trump, even though he wasn't around. Here it is.
We've got lots of plans, and in fact, we're pulling Republicans over. 4 Republicans joined us today on the discharge petition so we can continue the Affordable Care Act tax credits to get people health insurance in the country. It was amazing to me to see Donald Trump attacking the insurance companies. The whole reason we've got the Affordable Care Act is because the Republicans insisted that the insurance companies be part of it. If you want to oust the insurance companies, let's move to a Medicare for all plan. Let's move to health care for everybody. But if you don't want to move to a single payer public plan where all American citizens are in, and you don't like the Affordable Care Act, and you don't like pre-existing condition coverage, and you don't like everything we've been able to build over the last several years, you're just saying go back to whatever happens, total free market approach, which does not work for healthcare. And in fact, that is what they stand for, because they've had more than a decade when they've said, we'll get you our new plan in 2 weeks, and they've never come up with anything. So we're moving forward, Caitlin. I mean, we're offering concrete, practical suggestions every single day, and we are making it happen. And they're just scrambling to catch up. But as you just saw, it's utterly incoherent.
Yeah. So it's all Trump's fault. And the whole reason why we have Obamacare is because of Donald Trump.
That is some of the most convoluted reasoning.
Yeah.
The reason that Republicans are not the reason, other than the fact that they didn't vote well enough.
Yeah.
Enough of them. That this was their idea to begin with. We tried to temper it and make it maybe not as horrible. And so now it's our fault.
Yeah, this is a classic. Well, you're in charge now, so obviously it's your fault. It's convoluted. It's stupid. And I mean, the only reason that I show you videos with Jamie Raskin is just to expose how transparently idiotic the arguments of the Democrats are. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and take our second break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the program. We're going to talk about ICE and a crazy imam in Miami. The message there, told you so. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely, and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country, and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics is only going to get bigger. Make sure that you don't miss a single episode of the program. You can watch the live show every Tuesday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. The podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And don't miss the Outrider, the new newsletter of Cowboy State Politics, which will come out shortly after we finish up today's program. Still got a couple of things that I want to write to you, one of which happens to be a sneak peek into what the the Christmas Eve special is going to be. That's a tradition I started when I first began the Cowboy State Politics podcast, is that every Christmas Eve I have a Christmas story for you, and I've got a good one planned for you. I think you'll like it.
I thought there was only one Christmas story.
Well, there is only one Christmas story. That's why I said it's Christmas Eve, and it's my special Christmas message. And it's, this year, well, you know what? You're going to have to sign up for the newsletter to find out early what's going to happen. And to do that, you go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, and the very first thing you'll see will be a pop-up. You just put your email address in there and hit submit, and I'll send you a copy of the newsletter. And it's a rundown of everything that happens on the program, and it gives us another way to communicate. Now, there are just some people that don't want to listen to podcasts. I personally don't know any of those people, and I don't quite understand them. But anyway, there are people that don't want to listen to the show, and they prefer to read their news. I think that's a little bit inefficient and, whatever. But hey, different strokes for different folks, and that's why I started the newsletter, so that we can communicate that way. So go to the website, sign up for it. I'll send you a copy of it. Also, I went ahead and opened up the phone lines if you want to be part of the program. If there's something on your mind, go ahead and give me a call. The phone number is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989, and I'll get Agent 29 to put that up on the screen so we can, if you want to call, talk to us, then there's the number. So Ilhan Omar, she is still defending all the Somali fraudsters in Minnesota, but now she's saying that the actions of ICE are state-sanctioned violence. That's a direct quotation. Wednesday on CNN's The Situation Room, Representative Ilhan Omar said immigration and customs enforcement operations are state-sanctioned violence. Host Wolf Blitzer said, quote, "What it's like on the ground right now, not just for you, but your fellow Somali Americans," and this, I love this part of it, "and I've known many of them over the years, and they're very, very hardworking. Do you have a lot of those people over for dinner, Wolf? I mean, is that what you're referring to? I hate it when hosts like Blitzer or Rachel Maddow or any of them say, I've known a lot of these people throughout my life, and they're really, have you? Or is that something you're just saying on TV? Anyway, Ilhan Omar says it's state-sanctioned violence. Now, I've got a video that's titled, let's see here, Omar, ICE is state-sanctioned violence. Take a look at this.
Our next guest, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, says ICE is, quote, in her words, terrorizing immigrant communities in her district. The president has labeled Ilhan Omar and Somali Americans, many of them in the Minneapolis area, as, quote, garbage. His word, garbage. The Congresswoman joins us now here in the Situation Room. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. What's it like on the ground right now? Not just for you, but your fellow Somali Americans. And I've known many of them over the years. They're very hardworking, very decent people. And to hear the president of the United States call them garbage.
Many in Minneapolis and certainly in Minnesota are experiencing a sanctioned violence. We're seeing people being stopped, dragged out of their cars, people detained for hours, many who are citizens. And it is really terrifying. But what we are also seeing is people showing just how resilient and united Minnesotans are in defending their neighbors, documenting the actions, the unlawful actions that we're seeing from ICE agents, and we're seeing them come together.
I know that the Trump administration's immigration crackdown has become very personal for you, even though you're a member of Congress. You've said that federal immigration agents actually pulled over your son on Saturday and asked him to prove his citizenship. He is, of course, a U.S. citizen, as are you. The Department of Homeland Security says, and I'm quoting them, ICE has absolutely zero record of its officers or agents pulling over Congresswoman Omar's son, and have accused you of seeking to, quote, demonize ICE as part of a PR stunt, their words. What do you say to that?
Well, if ICE is saying that they have documentation of every single person that they have pulled over in Minneapolis, we would love to see that record, because we've certainly, myself and the governor, have been asking them to share information with us.
Enough of that crap. So essentially what she just said is, well, they don't have any record that they didn't do it. Therefore, they did. The absence of evidence is not evidence itself, my friends. And the truth is, there is plenty of evidence that the Somali community in Minnesota is responsible for all this fraud, that a large percentage of them are illegal aliens. And as it relates to the fraud, the investigation that I read about, there was, like, of everybody that's involved in that thing, there's only 4 or 5 that aren't Somali immigrants. The rest of them said, I mean, I'm not saying it's the entire community. I'm saying everybody involved is of that community.
I wish that Wolf had asked her if the police detain a suspected murderer, is that state-sanctioned violence? Well, obviously, the police are just doing their job.
Right.
Murder is against the law. Okay, so is coming into the country illegally, and ICE is doing their job. And to call them lawless, I don't know what law she's appealing to. Maybe it's Sharia law.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know this.
2 + 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Words do mean things. And there are a lot of them being thrown around lately. Ken, you brought up one of them, violence. So if you get detained, let's say you get pulled over, and they say, Mr. Iverson, would you step out of the vehicle? And I step out of the vehicle. And even if they slap the cuffs on me and say, sit here, while they, find out everything they can about me, that is not violence. You're being detained. Now, we could question whether or not being detained is legal or not in that situation, but it's not violence. It doesn't even come anywhere close to that. And if you are in the country illegally, you are a criminal. The very first thing you did coming to our country is break our laws, which by definition means that you're a criminal. Criminals don't follow the laws.
No human being is criminal.
Yeah, I love that one. Really? There's a whole bunch of people at Rollins that might... well, I mean, if you ask them, they're all innocent. But there's a whole bunch of them that disprove that. The truth is that if you break our laws, you get arrested. If you're an illegal immigrant, you absolutely should get deported. I mean, that's what we do. That's what every other country does. Try being an illegal alien in, I don't know, Russia. What happens there? Maybe Russia's a bad example. Mexico.
That's actually at its core why we have a government.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely it is.
To take care of individual rights.
Yes, precisely. So, we throw these words around, and the truth is that words have meaning. And word choice, I tell this to my debate class all the time, that your word choice is really important, and it tells your audience exactly what you're thinking. And so when we hear people use different phrases, it conjures up, or different words, it conjures up images in your head. That's how we communicate. Like, I say a word, Ken hears the word, and in his mind it says, okay, this is what David is talking about. And so when we say violence, what that conjures up in your head is the cop pulling out a billy club and beating the crap out of a suspect. I would say that ICE is not doing that. Don't know. I mean, haven't seen any reports that that's happening.
When you say violence, cops usually aren't involved in my picture.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's usually criminals. And even if cops are doing that, well, they're criminals too. Or the word demonize. We hear that one a lot. We're demonizing people. What does that word actually mean? It means you are treating them like a demon, something that is truly evil. And so when politicians like Ilhan Omar or Jamie Raskin or any of them use that word, they're doing so intentionally to try to conjure up the worst possible image in your head. And it's wrong. I mean, you should say what you mean and mean what you say. Now, the other side of that is when we hear somebody say something that is truly abhorrent, that is truly wrong, why is it that we don't take them at their word? Why is it that we just say, oh, yeah, I didn't really mean that? Ladies and gentlemen, if somebody tells you that they're going to kill you, you might want to pay attention to that and take them at their word. I mean, it's actually a crime. It's what is it, terroristic threatening or something like that. But why is it that we don't take people at their word? Well, it's because we try to be good people and accepting and all of that. Well, let me tell you about a group that we should absolutely take them at their word. Now, we've talked a lot on this program about the problems of multiculturalism, and that if you want to destroy a society, allowing different cultures in to exist exactly as they are from wherever it was that they came from, that will destroy your community. It will cause them to set up their same entire culture inside your own. And one of the biggest problems that we are dealing with, and I think it's pretty insidious, because we're dealing with a culture that is holistically incompatible with our own. And of course, I'm referring to radical Islam. Now, there is a difference between Islam and being an Islamist. Being an Islamist means that you are using a religion, which, again, there's lots of examples where that's not really a religion of peace. But, I mean, all you got to do is read the Quran to figure that out. But there's a difference between being Muslim and being an Islamist. An Islamist uses religion to forward a political purpose. And that's what a lot of Islamic immigrants are doing in the country. Here is Marco Rubio talking about that very problem. Listen, watch this.
I'm supposed to have that one?
Yeah, you should got it. Rubio on radical Islam. Maybe. There it is.
Ultimately, all radical Islamic movements in the world identify the West writ large, but the United States in particular, as the greatest evil on the earth. And every chance to have the notion that somehow radical Islam would be comfortable with simply controlling some province in Iraq or Syria is just not borne out by history. Radical Islam has shown that their desire is not simply to occupy one part of the world and be happy with their own little caliphate. They want to expand. It's revolutionary in its nature. It seeks to expand and control more territories and more people. And radical Islam has designs openly on the West. On the United States, on Europe, we've seen that progress there as well. And they are prepared to conduct acts of terrorism. In the case of Iran, nation-state actions, assassinations, murders, you name it, whatever it takes for them to gain their influence and ultimately their domination of different cultures and societies. That's a clear and imminent threat to the world and to the broader West, but especially to the United States, who they identify as the chief source of evil on the planet. Okay, the reason why they hate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the leadership of the UAE, of Bahrain, is because they've allowed the United States to partner with them. That's why they hate them. They consider them infidels for it. They hate Israel. But they also hate America. And they hate anywhere in the world that we have influence. They seek to attack it, including here in the homeland. If you look at the domestic terrorists, at the attacks that have happened here domestically, the overwhelming majority of them have been inspired by radical Islamic viewpoints. And that includes the shooting in the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. That includes the Saudi pilot in Pensacola, my home state, 2 attacks.
Okay, so you might say that, wow, Marco Rubio, it's just he's just demonizing, all Muslims. He's just making that sort of stuff up. He's just an Islamophobe. That's probably the response that we would hear from most people in response to that. But actually, Marco Rubio is stating a fact. It is a revolutionary movement. And if you look at how the country of Iran is run, and you compare that to your run-of-the-mill everyday Marxist, the two ideologies have very, 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 I mean, they have a lot of similarities. Now, one is religious based, the other one is based on economics. But when you look at it, I mean, it is like taking over an entire society, forcing the society to act, according to one ideology. And I mean, that's exactly what it is. Now, in the media, you might hear this as the red-green alliance, that the Marxists and Islamists are teaming up. Now, that's one of the reasons why you see, a lot of the protests. We haven't seen any for a while, but you would see people who are carrying signs that are clearly Marxist in nature, right alongside somebody who's shouting "Free Palestine." The two ideologies are roughly the same. Now, here's a piece. It's entitled "Miami Imam. U.S. Deserves Divine Punishment. Trump is Human Garbage. The foot of the dirtiest Somali is cleaner than your face." Now, this is coming from an imam in Florida, and he runs the largest mosque in Florida. So we're not talking about a small-time, fringe. I mean, I would argue that he is fringe, but we're not talking about somebody who runs a small mosque. This is the largest mosque in Florida, a pretty populous state, and this is the guy that runs it. So let me just read you a couple of paragraphs, and then I've got a couple of videos for you to watch. Quote, "America deserves mass punishment from Allah, but has been spared only out of honor for devout Muslims living in the U.S., according to a Florida Islamic cleric, who went on to denounce President Donald Trump as human garbage, claims Somali's feet are cleaner than the American president's face, and mocked Secretary of State Marco Rubio as gay, declaring that the mere prospect of a caliphate gives him nightmares. During a sermon delivered earlier this month at the North Miami Islamic Center in Miami, Florida, Islamic preacher Fadi Youssef Kablawi, I mean, isn't that appropriate? Anyway, he told congregants that the United States has committed so much injustice globally that it warrants divine punishment, arguing that the only reason such punishment has not occurred is due to the presence of righteous Muslims in this country. All right, I'm going to play this video for you, but before you hit play, Ken, some of the things in this video are pretty shocking. He says some things that you might considered to be pretty disturbing. At least I find them disturbing. So fair warning, it's not fun to listen to, but go ahead and play it.
I believe that this system and this country has committed so much injustice in the world that people committed way less in history, way less injustice, and Allah punished them at mass scales. Yet those in this country, Allah is not punishing them, and they have committed way more. And when I think about it, this is my personal ijtihad. When I think about it, I think one of the main reasons for that is because we Muslims are living amongst them.
Stop.
And out of honoring us and not...
Did you hear what he said? That we Muslims are living amongst them. Now, what he's referring to is us, Christians, that we Muslims are living amongst them. Now, remember, word choice is very important, and words do mean things. And this guy, he's not in Tehran, where he's saying this. He's in the middle of Miami, at the biggest mosque in that entire state.
The money in his pocket says "E pluribus unum."
I'm sure that it does. But now remember, he says we're living amongst them, which might lead you to believe, let me use another word, that they have infiltrated this society. I mean, that is entirely what he's saying. Now, he's about to get to some of the nastier parts of it. So go ahead and hit play, Ken.
All of us, just to be clear, honoring some of us who are holding tight to their deen the way he wants. Out of that honor, Allah is not punishing this country at large scale. Somalis are garbage. I can tell you don't even know how to clean yourself after bathroom. These kuffar do not know how to clean themselves after using bathroom. Somalis are garbage, you human garbage. Well, like the foot of the dirtiest Somali is cleaner, most probably, and has less microbes and bacteria than your face that you hardly wash. Secretary of State, this gay guy, talking about radical Muslims. Oh, this radical Muslims is not that. Talks like a girl. It's not. It's not like they want to control one place and then their little khilafa and they're satisfied with that. No, they want to go little khilafa, ya mutakhallif. Little khilafa. Well, like this is what making you have sleepless nights, nightmares you're having.
Okay, so that's the first part. Now, I've got one more little video I'm going to show you here in just a second. But you heard what he said, that it's, you don't wash your hands after you use the bathroom. The foot of any Somali is cleaner than the president's face. I mean, those are some pretty direct things. And again, why is it that we don't take these people at their word? I mean, it's very clear to me at least, that he hates this country, that he says that this country deserves divine punishment. And he says the only reason that Allah hasn't done it yet is out of respect for the Muslims that live here. But it's very clear, like, what he believes. And again, he's not sitting in the middle of Tehran where he's saying this. He's in the middle of Miami. And if you want to know what multiculturalism will do, it is not that far from him saying those things to one of his congregants acting on those things. And when you're the leader of the biggest mosque in Miami, I mean, I would assume that your position is no different than if, from a minister of one of the mega churches. There's a lot of people that go to big churches and they look to the guy who's standing at the pulpit with respect. I mean, he's the minister, right? So why wouldn't this guy's congregants act in very, very, very much the same way? Well, they would. Now, let me play you this next one here. Here, he's going to talk specifically about Christians. Listen to this.
I go outside to make da'wah. I'm not going to go to a Christian to tell them, I hate you. For what? What benefit is going to get? Muhammad didn't do it, and Allah didn't tell us to do it. But that does not deny the fact I do. Well, I don't hate him because his head is big, or his skinny or fat, or his skin color. But I still hate him as a being.
Did you hear what he said? I don't hate a Christian because his head is big or what he looks like. I hate him because of his being. Now, the majority of people in America are Christians, and this guy is leading the biggest Muslim church in Miami. Why shouldn't we take him at his word?
Marvel not that the world hates you.
Indeed. So to suggest that multiculturalism is a laudable goal, that it is something that we should focus on, that we can live in peace and prosperity. How do you do that with a guy like him that says that he hates Christians just by virtue of them being Christian, that he thinks that America deserves divine punishment? Now, what do you suppose his more unhinged congregant is going to do? Well, if that's what your minister is telling you, then I think that we can all guess what's probably going to happen. My friends, it is time to take these people at their word. And when somebody says that they hate you for what you believe, well, then maybe you should listen to them. And I cannot stress how important this is. There are already parts of our country that are entirely set up apart from what we would call our society. I often refer to Dearborn, Michigan, but that's just the classic example. That's the one that most people know. But there are other folks, like there's a guy in Texas who's trying to set up an entirely Muslim community. And he's bought up all sorts of property, and he's going to run it by Sharia law. Now, just because, and this is another case where we in America tend to believe, well, it can't happen here. Now, this is America. That sort of stuff won't happen here. Well, now, granted, there are differences between the UK and America. They don't have the freedom of speech. We do. They don't have a Bill of Rights. We do. But, it wasn't that long ago that their society wasn't really all that different than ours. Now, There are over 80 Sharia courts in the UK. 80. There are entire segments of London that the police don't go to. So often, what happens in Europe takes a little while to come here. But make no mistake that it will come here. And, living in Wyoming, we have this attitude that, this is Wyoming. It's not happening here. Ken, how many times have you heard that phrase in the legislature?
3.
Yeah, it's more than 3. But we do have that attitude. And as Americans, we often have a very similar attitude. Oh, don't worry about that. That's not going to happen here. This is America. That can't. Well, it can. And especially it can if you have guys like that imam, the largest church, I don't even know if you want to call it a church, largest mosque in Miami. It can happen here, my friends.
Interesting to me how one-sided it is, because if you look at groups like the Proud Boys,
yeah,
they can immediately say whoever's leading the Proud Boys is going to spur somebody on to doing something foolish. We've got to curtail that. We've got to step in the way. So they see it on that side.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, they turn a blind eye.
Well, and it may be a little bit more than that, Ken. I mentioned earlier that when you have two different groups that are ideologically aligned, they tend to act together. That's this red-green alliance, or so the media calls it. But it's the Marxists and the Islamists, acting together. Now, how many protests did we watch where there were people carrying pride flags that said "Free Palestine" on it? You know what's going to happen to those people if they move to Tehran? They're going to be thrown off a building.
Yeah, I'd like Red Green. He's a good comedian. I like duct tape. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, well, let's go ahead and take our last break. And when we come back, I'm going to attempt to answer a question that has long puzzled me. Why is it that Nancy Pelosi got elected so much? There's a guy who's probably going to take her place, and we're going to talk about him. Coming up next. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. There's 7 days until Christmas. If you haven't got all of your holiday gift shopping done, you better hurry up because pretty soon, well, I realize you already bought a gift for yourself, Ken. That's very nice, very nice. I appreciate you giving it to me. Thank you. Any other guns that you want to send my way wrapped up as a Christmas package, I will take them.
Don't hold your breath.
I won't. But it is very nice. During the break, Ken and I were talking about something that there has been, and I think that you hit it on the head in the last segment where you said that marvel not that the world hates you. I have seen an increasing rise in what I would call that it's nothing short of anti-Semitism, and it always starts out kind of in a low murmur. There's nothing wrong with being critical of the actions of another country, and if you are critical, that doesn't mean that you're anti-Semitic. Thank you, Ken. Break. My coffee pot did not make the coffee in time to make it into the break. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with being critical of the actions of our country. We have that right. It's in the First Amendment that it's the right to get a redress for your grievances. That's entirely appropriate, and you should criticize your government, and we should criticize the actions of another government.
Let me throw this out there. When he made the comment that America is deserving of divine punishment, and
that's what he said.
Actually, I wholeheartedly agree because of abortion.
Yes, but you don't mean it in the same way that he does. That radical imam means blowing the place up. What you mean is God's punishment. And to that, we could wholly agree on. But those two things are different, and they're meant in a different way. What I meant when I said that I am concerned about an increasing amount of anti-Semitism is that a lot of people that I would argue are, otherwise pretty conservative, I've seen some stuff that they posted that is... It's pretty close to verging on anti-Semitism. Now, make no mistake. Don't take my words out of context here. I am not saying that if you are critical of what another country does, that you're anti-Semitic. I'm not saying that at all. I might argue against you. I might say that I think your reasoning is flawed, but I don't think that makes you anti-Semitic. However, when I see statements that it's the Jews that are doing this, well, you're categorizing an entire race of people. In one way, that's pretty racist. And the word that we use when you're being racist towards the Jewish people is you're being anti-Semitic. But let me throw this at you. So if you are being critical of AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, there's nothing wrong with that. You should be critical of political actions committees. I mean, who is it that's donating to them? What causes are they supporting? We've got a lot of PACs that work in this country. But if it is, AIPAC is bad simply because it's the Jewish lobby or whatever. And if you are not being critical of other political action committees at the same time, you are, by definition, being entirely anti-Semitic. Let me give you an example. If your criticism of AIPAC is not the same that you're leveling at Saudi Arabia, for example, you're being anti-Semitic. Saudi Arabia dumps a tremendous amount of money into American politics, far more than AIPAC does. As far as political action committees go, AIPAC is kind of small. They're dwarfed by the amount of money that the Chinese dump into this country or that Saudi Arabia does. And let me remind you who it was that knocked down a couple buildings in New York. It was Saudi Arabia, and some of those guys were state-sponsored, and now we're friends with those folks, allegedly. But if your criticism of Saudi Arabia isn't exactly the same as what you're saying about AIPAC, well, you need to reassess your argument because you really are being anti-Semitic, and it's wrong. Being racist is wrong, period. And we shouldn't judge people based on, the color of their skin, the way that they look, the color of their hair, or whether they're Jewish, black, or Asian or anything. I mean, we should judge them on the content of their character. But if you're categorizing an entire group of people, you're being a straight up racist, and you need to stop. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there are some people that I've seen some of the stuff that they post, and it's pretty anti-Semitic, and I think it's wrong. And you should really reassess your belief system if you're the one that's making those arguments. It's fine to criticize. In fact, I think that you should. But if your criticism is verging on on hypocritical racism, well, then you've got a big problem. All right, so let's move on. A question that I have often wondered for as long as I've been, interested in politics. How the heck does Nancy Pelosi continue? How did she get elected all of those times? I mean, sure to goodness, there's at least one conservative in her district that could run against her. And there have been, but she has beaten the pants off of pretty much anybody that's run against her. Now, there's a piece in the Free Press entitled "The Race to Succeed Pelosi is a Fight for the Future of the Democratic Party." Now, this may not directly answer our question, how did she get elected so many times? But I think it might give us some insight. Let me read part of it to you here. Senator Ted Cruz once said of a state senator, quote, "I thought this guy was thrown out of Congress for sending naked pictures of himself," intentionally confusing Scott Wiener with disgraced former Congressman Anthony Weiner. And yet, in the race to replace Nancy Pelosi, who announced last month that she would retire after nearly 40 years, that's 20 elections. 20 times she got reelected, and all of them consecutive. Weiner is arguably the less radical of the two leading candidates. Now, if your name is Weiner, I doubt very seriously that you're not a radical. And I don't know who your voters are that would vote for somebody with the last name of Weiner, but man, got a problem here. Weiner's main opponent is a 39-year-old Saikat Chakrabarty. When we met, Weiner corrected my pronunciation of Chakrabarty's name as it's Shoikat, not Saikat. I have no idea. That's what the article says. Anyway, this guy is the former chief of staff to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and a co-founder of the Progressive Political Action Committee, Justice Democrats. He wants to hike taxes on billionaires and centimillionaires to build centimillion. That's a word I've never heard before. A centimillionaire. To build infrastructure, schools, clean technology, clean energy, and to reindustrialize the Midwest, all with an eye towards remaking the party of the left into a party of the left again. When he's not running for office himself, he is recruiting progressive upstarts to primary Democratic old-timers and moderates, starting with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He was unclear how many Democrats he had recruited so far, but Justice Democrats announced that he's planned to recruit candidates in all 50 states. I wonder what he's going to pull off in Wyoming. By contrast, Weiner, who is 55, asked whether there were any differences between him and Pelosi. He gushed, "She is like this unique, energetic force that's hard to even get your head around," adding, "There will never be another Nancy Pelosi. Thank God." When pressed on whether he and Pelosi agreed on much, he said, quote, "I think Nancy recently came out in support of banning stock trading. I've always supported that." So why is it that I say that this piece might answer our question as to how she got elected? Well, you have two candidates. One who is super, super radical and thinks that Nancy Pelosi walks on water. Too bad she never tried. She'd sink to the bottom. And the other guy who says that he is going to up the ante, that the Democrats who are in Congress are not radical enough for them. And it's interesting that he says he's going to recruit candidates in all 50 states. I'd love to see the polling that suggests he's going to win an election in Wyoming. I don't know. I mean, it's happened before, but given the political climate today, I really don't think that that's going to happen. At least I hope that it doesn't. So I guess the answer is that the reason Nancy Pelosi got elected so often is her voters are stupid. Not all of them, but certainly the ones that are casting ballots. And obviously, she got a majority. Now, here's where I think this might be more telling, is that the conservative grassroots, and you know that there has to be one, even in San Francisco, they really haven't had any success, certainly for the last 40 years. And it might be a measure of the way their districts are drawn in California. Lord knows that Gavin Newsom has been trying to redraw the districts to make it easier to elect Democrats. Well, I don't really know why he needs to redraw them. I mean, California is pretty much a Democrat state. And so I think the reason why Nancy was able to get elected so often is just because there is not a significant conservative grassroots in that district. And I think really what the RNC ought to do is look at a lot of these districts, because you know that there's conservatives just about everywhere. I mean, I've met a lot of people that moved here from California, different parts, and they're very conservative. Now, I mean, arguably, they may not be the most, the biggest majority in those districts, but certainly there are some. And secondly, I really don't think that we found the candidate with the right message. I mean, it's pretty easy to run in a Democrat district if you're a radical Democrat. But certainly there's got to be a conservative there that can run against her. And I am convinced that if you have the right message, that you can convince people to vote for you. Now, I might be wrong. I mean, there are some districts even in Wyoming that are solidly Democratic. Laramie, one of them. But we still got, I guess Ocean Andrew is in a different district, but the district that includes the University of Wyoming, we had a good guy running there. And, I don't think that he did too bad considering what the district was made of.
My seat.
Yeah, yours is a great example. So the street that Ken lives on, it's you drive down it during election time, and it's, conservative signs. If you go a block over, that whole street, man, is Rainbow Flagville. I mean, solidly Democratic. And I think, Ken, that you prove my point, that your district, probably more than a lot of them, is pretty split down the middle. I mean, if you really drive around in your district, there are some neighborhoods that are very conservative, the one that I live in. There are others that are clearly, solidly on the left. And yet, the last election, you didn't have an opponent. Why is that? Well, it could be maybe that his folks think that Ken is doing a bang-up job. Is he going to have an opponent this year? Well, we don't know yet. I would argue probably so. But even so, you still beat the first time around. You didn't win by that much, but you still won. And that was your first, really, I guess the second time you ran, right? Because you lost your first election.
Yeah, by a little bit.
By a little bit. But, it's a really good example. And, Ken is really good. I once, I've told this to you before, but during the last election, he stopped by the house just to say hi. And I looked at his boots and I said, man, your boots are too darn new. They're too shiny. You obviously have not been doing enough door to door. And he laughed and he goes, actually, I just got a new pair of boots. Let me show you the old ones. And he goes to his pickup and pulls them out. And the sole of his boot was just completely worn down. And he goes, no, I have been doing door to door. And that's how you win elections, is that you go door to door and you talk to folks. And that is probably the biggest failure in San Francisco, I would say.
There are a couple of streets I don't bother with, though. I'll be honest. A couple of them in my neighborhood, I ain't going there.
Well, and that one, like the one I was referring to, it's either a half a block or a block over. It's pretty solidly a blue street. So anyway, I guess the maybe we don't have an answer to the question, but I think it is probably that the Republican Party has not been doing enough. And there's a lot of districts in California that I'm convinced that it was, who was it? Darrell Issa. I mean, he was elected, stepped down from Congress, and got elected again. Now, I'm okay. So he does have a more right-leaning district, but still, it's in California. He got elected. And I just think that we're not winning the argument enough. And and maybe this is me being naive, but I still believe that if you've got a good message and if you're a good communicator and you do the door to door, that you can win elections. And I think that's just the problem that's happened there in California. All right. Well, that pretty much does it for today's program. I know it's a little bit early, but I've got some stuff I got to do today. I've got to get that newsletter out, and I've got a couple of appointments to do. So we're going to call it a little bit early. We'll be back tomorrow with Open Line Friday. Make sure that you don't miss it, 8 o'clock. And if you want, the newsletter is going to go out here in just a few minutes. So, hey, if you want to see what it is, send me your email. Have a good afternoon, my friends.